citizens. Good morning and welcome to Cheche. It's the program where opinion counts and it's live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwa Kamimo. Well, we know the news that Kenya has a president-elect in the person of Uhuru Kenyatta. That, of course, is subject to a petition expected to be filed to the Supreme Court disputing the results by his closest challenger, Raila Odinga, which we believe will happen later today. Several other election grievances will be winding their way through the courts. But for now, the National Alliance Party of Mr. Kenyatta and Party Chairman Johnson Sakaja, who we're expecting as our guest this morning, are celebrating. But while we anticipate Mr. Sakaja's joining us, he's been held up. He says there was a bad accident on Ngong Road. I do have with me on Cheche today, as usual, regular panelist Mutegi Njau of Citizen TV and political analyst David Makali. Good morning and welcome to Cheche. So, of course, the big headline is this petition coming from, the outgoing Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the ODM party. And he says that he's got strong evidence that the courts, which will, induce the courts to rule in his favor. Well, the Supreme Court, that is. Mutegi, what do you make of that?
I think it's entitled, and Kenyans, they provided for in the Constitution that if you are aggrieved, you go to court, which is the right way to do. Unlike 2007 when he says he could not trust the courts, this time he trusts the High Court and the Supreme Court. So he is going there. And yesterday they went to the High Court asking the High Court to force the Safaricom and the IEBC to give them documents that they need in order to support their case at the Supreme Court. And I suppose they will get the document. I don't see these are public documents. I don't see why, if they are, for instance, the documents like contracts signed, I don't see why IEBC should have difficulties giving them. The documents about the tabulations, the calls made, the communications here and there, those they should be able to get. I don't even think there's need to go to High Court. Because even an ordinary person like me, if I need those documents and if there's need for them, I'll get them. So I think that's perfect, all right. My beef with the Prime Minister is taking the matter to Kibera yesterday, where he purportedly wanting to tell them to be peaceful. But the tone of the language of people who are speaking there, Kinamuthama, and all those people who are talking, they're like insulting people, that we have won, we will win. So far, they lost, as far as everybody's concerned. Until the High Court makes the decision, they won.
Supreme Court, yeah. The
Supreme Court. So taking the matter to public, to me, is not reasonable. If they have evidence, the courts are there, not Kibera.
Yeah. David?
Well, I think, let me first say that this case is going to be unprecedented in many ways. The case that is before the court this morning, which is being adjudicated this morning, is sort of a preliminary suit to the main case that is coming, I think, Friday, when the deadline constitutionally set for filing a presidential petition is due to expire. And from my knowledge, I think they are really preparing to go to court after tomorrow. Today's case is actually a formality without getting into the details. And it did not have to get there in the first place, because if you look at the pleadings, the plaint filed in court by
the campaigner, the chief campaigner.
Yeah, the chief campaigner, Eliud Owalo. He's basically saying that we've been asking IBC to avail these documents for us to prepare our petition. And also, he's saying that we have written to IBC enough times, even while the counting was going on, the tallying at the Bomas was going on, to avail certain documents or certain information for their own confidence, also to have confidence in the process, which IBC was never forthcoming. The one with the Safaricom, I guess, is substantive. I don't think that IBC, or they had asked for it earlier. But they've been asking, Safaricom to supply the same. Nobody seems to be forthcoming with this information, which, that kind of conduct raises eyebrows unnecessarily. IBC needs to be above board, and this information, when it's asked, ought to supply anybody, including me. If I go there and I say I need this information, they ought to give it. Apparently, IBC seems to be having difficulty of of the strangest kind, which generates unnecessary suspicion that they are not above board.
Motegi's point, though, about the Prime Minister taking his case to the court of public opinion in Kibera.
Yes. Yeah, I think that he's a politician. I think that he shouldn't do that. My view, if I was to give him advice, I think he should keep off any public statements that would appear to jeopardize his own position calling for peace, because supposing that incites or animates people and then they act in a manner that he did not predict, he takes the blame. So he's entitled to go and tell his supporters, because they're anxious across the country, this despondency, what is going on? Are we still, is there a possibility we could get this victory on our side? There are obviously a lot of CORD supporters who are very worried and unsure what is going on. So he owes them an explanation and information on what is going on. But the manner in which he has done it, I think I also have a problem.
But for now, we have a presumed winner in the person of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. And one of the things that this court case does is delay an inauguration. It delays the convening of parliament. What happens to the country during this limbo? Because this could take about a month.
Maybe the delay of the presidential swearing in may be affected, because
the delay of the president, because they have 7 days, and David is telling us that petition will be filed on Friday, and then the Supreme Court has 14 days
to determine the matter.
Yeah, so that's
and the swearing in was supposed to be on the 26th.
Yes, there we go.
March.
So we're already into 3 weeks.
So but that, according to Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, who is written in the New Press today, does not affect the parliamentary calendar. Parliament can go and be sworn in and start the business. But the problem is, if that happens, the cabinet secretaries and the people in government will not be there. If there is a parliament,
we'll have houses of parliament, but no government.
There will be no government, because the president will not have been sworn in.
I'm not sure whether actually parliament can sit without the president being sworn in, because the constitution says that the first sitting of parliament shall be the place and time of its sitting shall be determined by the president, and it does not, in my view, imply the current president. It means, in my interpretation, the incoming president elected at the same election with the members of parliament. So perhaps they can be sworn in, because the exercise of swearing them in is independent. It's done by the clerk of the National Assembly, and they can be sworn in and then go home, retreat and wait.
No, because first of all, they will have to elect a speaker.
Yes.
Then the clerk is there. Then the speaker and
to swear them in.
You can swear them in.
Once they are sworn in.
Once they are sworn in, then you go to limbo.
Then they go and wait for business. In fact, I think the thing which needs to follow after this election and hasn't been done is the IBC to gazette the elected members of parliament, county reps, governors and senators.
They're going to. I mean,
once that is done,
there should not be any hitch. That will be done by Friday.
Yeah, once that is done, then you know that you have really elected members of parliament. Because so far,
in fact, it's from then that if anybody has any petitions against the governors or MPs or whatever, they can now start going to court.
Yes.
Although some people have already gone to court, like the election of Joho, is being challenged. And I'm sure there are other people who are going to challenge other Tharaka-Nithi County. The governor, I think there is an disputed issue there. So, so those fellows can only go to court after the gazettement of the.
There's a time limit. There's also a time limit. I don't know how many days within which you need to petition, file a petition against a member of parliament or governor or senator, which I hope will not be affected by the delay in the gazettement of the elected governors, representatives.
I suppose even that timetable will also begin when the gazettement is done, not of the declaration of elections.
Yes, because somebody has to be declared elected.
Yeah.
And the declaration is beyond...
You see, like the president, they got that certificate.
That's right.
Which means now they are declared, they are president-elect until they're sworn in. But for the county governors, there's nobody with a document saying you are elected.
Only the Gazette notice.
Only the Gazette notice.
Will validate your election.
Validate yourself, exactly.
Exactly. But what I know, Uduak, is that this election is going to have numerous petitions at many levels, from MP to senator to governor levels. But the court, the judiciary already stated that they're prepared, and they've set up different courts to deal with petitions across the country. And all those petitions must be done within 6 months. So some of the problems we had in the past of filing a petition, like, for example, the one that court intends to file, would have stayed in the courts for 3 years. We remember the Mwai Kibaki against Moi one. But those things have not been cured. So the security in going to court, because matters will be determined quickly, and the verdict.
In fact, the High Court prepared and even set up judges, and they even trained them, even magistrates. In fact, this time round, magistrates will be able to hear petitions, particularly of county representatives.
Right.
You know, the former councillors. They will be had at the magisterial level, not the High Court, which means the matters will be disposed of very quickly. Yeah.
I suppose the other welcome bit of news in the papers today is the slashing of the pay of the legislators. They will have to pay tax. The allowances, the grants they were given to buy cars are now loans. So it just means that there's a leveling of the playing field, doesn't it? And that the huge wage bill that the public purse has been supporting is trimmed, you know, somewhat.
The thing is, I think the premium has been taken out of elective office.
What do you mean by the premium? What are you calling premium?
The incentive for those elective positions, like, you know, MP previously, were that you could go in there and you had a chance of becoming a minister. That was whittled. Now their pay has been reduced to, you know,
500,000.
Yes, to what other people can get outside without the hassle of what will obviously come, because it hasn't gone away, being the members of the constituents demanding help and all those unspecified forms of assistance which MPs have traditionally given. So in a way, I really pity members of parliament, because the avenues for corruption and you know, getting into government by cabinet or assistant minister and so forth are non-existent. So where are they going to get the extra money that sustains their lifestyle and their representation in the mode we have known it in the past? It's really a tough job for members of parliament.
If you remember, just before the end of the 10th parliament, they entrenched themselves in the Constituent Development Fund. Whereas before they were just patrons, this time I think they have been more entrenched. And that's where the gravy soup was.
We have to take a break because our guest is here, but I want to pick you up on this point you make, that avenues of corruption have been sealed off and you're pitying MPs.
I pity them. I mean, in the past, you know, you got elected and you became a member of parliament, then you were target. Your target was to become a minister,
being
or an assistant minister, which gave you extra pay and allowances.
Okay.
And it became, I'm talking about tradition. Not that it is a bad loss. It's expected and it's a good thing to have happened. Yeah. But now we have to
MPs,
go to the
MPs will just be MPs.
Yeah.
They will just be going to parliament.
Okay, excellent. We'll pause and pick up that point when our guest, Johnson Sakaja, who's the chairman of the National Alliance Party, joins us after the break.
Is something wrong? Is it bad news? Tell me.
No, it's nothing. It's just a picture.
You look like you saw a ghost. Well, what, can I see? Come on, let me see the picture.
I hope I've made myself clear. Under no circumstance will you be able to adopt the boy. How much money do you want to leave this ranch for good?
What did you say?
Umeelewa mashtaka haya? Nakiri.
Nakiri.
A legal drama based on real life cases.
Palipo na ukweli uongo ukitenga.
Ndio nitakawasema mbele hii koti.
Maneno yote nitakao kwa hii kesi.
Una swali ungependa kumuuliza huyu shahidi?
Niko na swali. Na niko na uchungu sana moyoni.
With some humor.
Washa kumkodorea macho kodokodo. Niulize swali kwa mdomo.
Mjinge anakuanga jeshi.
Mashtaka every Sunday on Citizen TV.
yeasty. What? Your own flesh and blood.
It's famous across Africa and beyond.
She's 7-8 months pregnant. It's too late.
It's never too late.
No. Oh. I know, it's hard to process.
My friend, I say go for it.
Generations now on Citizen TV, Monday to Friday, 5:30 p.m. and on Saturday, an omnibus from 4:30 p.m.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning.
The most watched local productions in Kenya are back.
Wow. Is that worth it is? Awesome.
Now, even better than ever.
Hizi ndio tabia umeanza? Mshaenda kununua avocado?
Ndio.
Fanya unaona kama mtu anashika, hii imeiva, anaweka chini, hii imemotoka sana. We. Kelele yote hiyo ni nini?
We, umemuua.
The best of local entertainment on Citizen TV.
Andi wanyashina, ango wanyashina, ingo ho, masama dami na mahumokombero. Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Johnson Sakaja, chairman of the National Alliance Party, or TNA, of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta, is our guest this morning. He's joined us with his apologies due to a bad accident on Ngong Road. So we're assuming that you've been celebrating. But of course, we know that this is a presumed victory because of this petition to the Supreme Court that we're expecting from the outgoing Prime Minister, Raila Odinga. So are you really celebrating?
We've not yet really had time to celebrate because, as we promised Kenyans, we'd get to work immediately. I think you've seen His Excellency the President-elect and his deputy already at work, getting the necessary briefings that they've been getting, as well as receiving messages from other presidents across the world. I think the victory is there, Kenyans saw it, but the petition is within the process of the law. I think it is within the constitutional right of the Prime Minister or whoever else it would have been to file the petition. It's part of our process. Within 14 days it should be completed, and we look forward to the inauguration on the 26th.
Isn't it a bit presumptuous then of the President-elect and the deputy to be getting down to work if their presumed victory is announced by the IEBC is still awaiting confirmation from the Supreme Court?
It is not awaiting confirmation because, as you know, first of all, there's no case that has been filed yet. There's an intention to file a suit by court. They have not yet done it. Yesterday they were at the High Court requesting for evidence from the IEBC and Safaricom. 2 days before that, they had said they have a lot of evidence, and they're still trying to get it. Once the chairman of the IEBC declares one victorious, and thus President-elect and Deputy President-elect, then that part of the process is done without trying to preempt any other processes. Yes.
But we remain at a place, though, where the country is deeply divided. This victory that the IBC announced, President Kenyatta got, just over half of the votes, and the same to the outgoing Prime Minister. So we have a deeply divided nation.
I think first of all, I must correct you. There's no way they could both have gotten just over half of the votes. First, I must applaud Kenyans because this was an unprecedented turnout, 86%. Nowhere in the history of this country has somebody, first of all, garnered more than 6 million votes. I remember I was on Citizen a few weeks ago, and they said, according to projections, we will win in the first round by more than 6 million votes, which came to pass. And it is not a slight victory, because garnering 50% itself is not easy. But having said that, it was the threshold was 50% plus one. What the president-elect was able to garner was 50% plus 4,000. So it's 4,000 times what the minimum threshold would have been, which is one vote in addition to the 50%.
Right. Speak to the point, though, about this deeply divided country where you have, you know, almost half of the country voting against,
I think
not with Mr. Kenyatta.
I think that is democracy. And the challenge and the work that there is now for the government of His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President-elect, will be to unite this country.
How will that happen?
That is our first agenda. We must reach out to those areas that did not vote for Jubilee. We must show them that it will be an inclusive government. In the first 100 days, the government that will be formed must be able to convince Kenyans that it is not a government for Jubilee, but it's a government for the entire Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
I think you can see I'm not dressed in my party colors because now
I'll point out, though, that we did invite members from the Orange Democratic Party and the Court Alliance to join us on the show, and they declined, citing the petition that they didn't want to preempt that. But David, you've been laughing, you know.
I'm really amused at you know, the answers that Johnson is giving.
Why?
Because first, let me refer to the his first point that. The presumption is that once the president-elect was given certificate by IEBC, it became business as usual. Yet he added by his own a rider that you know, the petition is actually part of the process, the electoral process. Now you see that the president-elect has swung into action, getting briefings, and you know, the moving on as if really the petition is not there, which is okay to presume there will be no petition, but it could come because they have announced that they're coming. But supposing, or doesn't it occur to you that you need to be a little more cautious, that in fact not you but the government ought to be a little more cautious in beginning to hand over the instruments of the transition, including security briefing, to a person who may not actually eventually take office if indeed the petition succeeds? Isn't that premature?
I don't think it's premature because, and I must correct what I said, I did not say that it's part of the electoral process. The electoral process ended by the declaration by the IEBC chairman.
I disagree.
What they're going through now is part of the legal process after the election, because it's provided for in the law that they have 7 days within which to file a petition,
yes,
after which there are 14 days,
yes,
for the determination of it,
yes,
and then there shall be the inauguration. I think it would not be fair for us to expect the entire country then now to pause and wait for a petition that might be filed, might not be filed. It's just an intention to file. It has not been filed.
Right.
Once they have been declared, I think the will of Kenyans, to a great extent, has been accepted until it is challenged. It has not yet been challenged. And it is well within the right of the government to start considering the president-elect and the deputy president-elect as, you know, within the constitutional mandate as it is right now. Because the constitution itself creates the position of president and deputy president-elect.
Are you suggesting, Mr. Sakaja, that once the papers are filed in the High Court and the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court starts hearing the petition, therefore the president and deputy president will remain freezed, doing nothing?
They will not cease to be president and deputy president-elect. In the same way, once they become president, and once His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta is inaugurated and is in office, if there is a motion of impeachment in the Senate, does he stop functioning as president?
Of course not.
Those are legal processes totally separate from the electoral process, where the will of Kenyans has actually been heard, and resoundingly so, I must add.
Okay, let me come to the second point where you say that the turnout in this election was 86. Did you say 86%?
I think it was around 80. It was around 86%.
86%.
Yes.
How do you explain the sort of the difference between the turnout nationally for the other positions across the board? Senator, governor.
What was the turnout for the other positions?
Which is roughly 73%.
No. I don't think that is the official figure from...
No, that is from my computation of the facts. National average, national turnout is 73% for all the other positions, except the presidential turnout, which is 86%. How did you achieve that? How did we achieve that?
First of all, I'm not sure that is the figure that has been released by IBC. in terms of turnout.
Even that can be explained this way.
All the other positions.
Even that can be explained this way.
There's a lot
of people, lot of people who went to vote and voted the president and nobody else.
Let me explain. Let me explain something.
There are a lot of people who, for instance, me, when I went to vote for a county representative or my MP, I didn't know who to care. I didn't care about them. My business was vote for president and MP, or the governor and the senator.
Let
me answer.
I don't think that is true. First of all,
it is.
First of all, Mutegi.
I think Makali, you asked me a question.
Yes. Answer, please.
So allow me to answer.
Comes in with.
Then Mutegi can support my answer or not.
Yes.
You see.
Yeah.
First of all, I have a problem with those figures you've said because I don't think they're the official figures.
Okay.
But secondly, since 1992, there's always been a difference between the total presidential turnout and the total parliamentary turnout, and that has been when we're dealing with 3 ballots: president, MP, and councillor. It is possible, and I'm not giving an answer as IBC because I do not know the reasoning. It is possible that there are many who voted for the president but did not vote for other positions. Yeah. But that is for the IBC to defend, not myself, because we do not influence that turnout. We do not know what factors they could have gone through in computing the turnout of different positions. But that's something they can explain. But my point is, it has always been there. In 2002, in 2007, if you look at it has always been there. I did a report after 2007 on the election where ODM was saying that the difference between presidential and parliamentary are the votes that Kibaki has rigged. And it was clear that everywhere, even in the world, there's always been a difference. It cannot be 100% the same.
Even logically, if you look at it logically, the motivation of people who are queuing there, they were going to queue for councillor.
The electoral process, Mutegi, if I may inform you, is very clear. People get into the polling station. You are given 6 ballot papers in this particular case. You enter, you are given the first one for county rep, the other one for women rep, the other one for governor, for senator, for president. You are given those things as you go. Whether you decide to vote only for the president or for your councillor alone does not mean that it will not reflect in the numbers of the ballot papers given out, which could be spoiled or not. Wait, let me explain. So it cannot be that 1.5 million people opted in the manner you are saying to only vote for the president and not for the governor, for the MP, for the senator. That is a very strange thing. You know, it can't work.
I don't think it's
1.5 million people.
I'm not trying to. I'm being illogical.
I'm just trying to explain.
I don't care about the figures. I don't care about the figures.
The point is that it has always been there. There has always been a difference, and this was not going to be the first election where there would be no difference between presidential, parliamentary, gubernatorial, or whatever.
I don't remember any such.
Let me answer David this way. Let me answer David this way. It is possible for me to go and get all those papers.
Yes.
Discard them. Vote the governor or the senator and the president.
Discard them where? They must be accounted for as point votes. If you don't discard them, put them in the pocket and go with them. That's
turnout is not measured on the basis of the different ballots.
Okay.
What is measured on the basis of different ballots is votes cast.
Yes.
Turnout is measured by the number of people who enter the polling station.
Yes,
and for you to say that there's a difference between those who entered and voted for president and those who entered and voted for others is not true. Because turnout is measured basically on the number of people who entered that polling station.
My explanation for that is that people went in and voted for their other positions. But there were extra votes which were adduced, which added up to this huge number. That is my assumption. Because there's no way they could have dropped into the presidential ballot 1.5 million votes that did not happen in all the other positions across the board.
I doubt it is 1.5 million. I think that is something you need to hear from the IBC.
If you do 73 and you do 86% turnout, if you aggregate the numbers, and these are I'm arguing from the tallies by the IBC, not my
the figures released by the IBC.
Yes, of the presidential tally and the totals of the other positions across the country in all the 47 counties.
Okay.
That is the
all right, fine.
difference.
So that point has been addressed. Yeah. Let's move on because you talked about within the first 100 days, uniting the country through inclusivity. How do you intend to do that? Are you reaching out to the other candidates, including the Prime Minister?
What I must say is this: inclusivity in government has more to do than just the candidates who vie. It includes going to those areas that may not have voted for you and, just assuring them that, one, they will be part of this government and that it's their government, whether they voted in or not. And I think when you had the victory speech by the president-elect, he said as much. Secondly, we are also pursuing possible post-election coalitions where we might have more numbers because, as you know, we already have a majority in...
a slim majority.
No, it's actually quite a majority.
No, it's
in
a slim
Parliament,
majority, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Not quite absolute.
CORD has 117 members in Parliament. We have 135. That is quite a majority.
It is
because one vote makes a difference in Parliament, depending on what you're voting on. Some need 65%, some need a simple majority. But we have many partners. For example, we have APK, who had always supported the presidential candidate. It's just that we did not sign an agreement with them. We have several other parties that are willing to join us. So we are pursuing that, and we will be able to present to Kenyans as a lean government, a government that is efficient but inclusive, and a government that is filled with professionals who are the best in their lines, because I think that is what the Constitution aspires to.
But we are reading in the press this morning that an effort by a Mani coalition to join Jubilee is having hitches, that the URP are having difficulties to accept the presence of Amani. And therefore, that what you are telling us could not be very...
I think there's a lot that goes through the papers, as you might have seen even during the election process. What we have as a coalition agreement is an agreement and a coalition that is anchored on mutual respect and equal partnership. Any decisions made for Jubilee will be made together with all the parties. So you will not see one side of the coalition pulling in one direction while another is pulling in a separate direction. And once whatever talks are done and an agreement is reached, it will be announced by both principals.
Okay, so let's be clear. There are talks going on, because we hear there are talks going on with Amani, then we hear there are no talks going on with Amani, then we hear that URP is opposed to Amani joining. So what exactly is taking place?
What I can say for now, because a lot of it is a function of strategy, is that we are talking to parties. I will not mention which specifically, but in the due course of time, and sooner rather than later, Kenyans will know.
Okay.
Yeah.
How involved are you in this process, given that you're the chairman of TNA, and you have a president-elect and a deputy president? So where do you come in terms of strategy?
I think, first of all, the last time I was here, I remember some were a bit skeptical of whether these young people who have been put in political parties will play a role. The first thing
that derived from
Mutegi was worried. He thought you'd be chewed up and spat out.
And
my worry is still...
I hope was able to prove you wrong, because the victory that Jubilee was able to secure, much of it was because of the innovation energy of young people. And I think, if nothing else, we've proven what young people can do given the chance in this country. When Uhuru Kenyatta gave his victory speech, he introduced his speechwriter, a 22-year-old lady called Julie, who has actually been working on his speeches all through. And Kenyans were shocked. I tell you what there lies within the young people of this country, because we are just a sample. I'm not the best young person. It's just a sample. But coming back to Udwak's question, you realize that we have a Political Parties Act, and we have laws within which all of these agreements need to be domiciled, or they need to follow. Any agreement with any political party must be done through the political parties, not through individuals. Agreements between individuals you have seen in the past will not hold, but it's the parties that have to sit down and sign and negotiate with instructions or with, a feeling of what our principals would like to have. So we are fully involved in this.
Okay, we have to take a break now. You'll have to hold that question till we come back. I'll remind you that you're watching Cheche, the program where opinion counts, which is live on Citizen TV with our guest this morning, Johnson Sakaja, the chairman of the National Alliance Party, or TNA, of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. If you've got any questions for him, you can SMS 2442 or tweet Cheche_TV.
There's no reason to miss history in the making with DSTV Mobile with the amazing Walker. With huge bargain prices as low as 4,500 shillings, 0 subscription fees for all DSTV Premium subscribers, and 3 months free viewing for non-subscribers. It's sure to fit your pocket in more ways than one. Hurry up, because with DSTV, everything else can wait. Also watch great TV like the Oscars, Super 15 Rugby, Champions League Football, and more on DSTV Mobile.
Energy-saving tips with Duracell. Remember to keep your tires properly inflated, since underinflated tires lead to higher fuel consumption. One Duracell lasts up to 10 ordinary zinc batteries. Buy Duracell and save up to 350 shillings.
Duracell lasts up to 10 times longer.
Do you need money? Do you need to create space for your new stuff? You can sell what you don't use or don't need by posting the items on olx.co.ke. It's really easy. Log into www.olx.co.ke, click on post a free ad, select the category of the item, fill in the form, upload a picture of the item, include your contact details, and a potential buyer will call you. And it's all for free.
Sell it.
Post your ad for free with OLX.
Welcome back to Cheche live on Citizen TV. We have as our guest today Johnson Sakaja, chairman of the National Alliance Party, or TNA, of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. And before the break, you were telling us about TNA and the wider Jubilee Alliance efforts to forge post-election coalitions. I guess the question then begins, you know, who exactly are you reaching out to? Before the break, we talked about Amani, and we know that there had been a brief dalliance beforehand. Who else are you speaking to, apart from those who are already allied with Jubilee?
I think, as I said before, I would not want to go into the details of who we're speaking to as a matter of strategy, because I might mention somebody and our colleagues run to them immediately and get them. But as soon as those talks concluded, because some of them are formal, most of them are informal.
Do you have people reaching out to you to say they're available?
Of course, many have reached out to us. Many, even within our leading opponents within that coalition, have been reaching out to us. So Kenyans should be in for some surprises soon. But you know, most people want to be in government. Being in government has, certain advantages that are obvious. But I think it's because people saw that those are resounding...
What advantages, Johnson, of being in government for a member of parliament?
Let me explain. Let me finish what I was saying. People have seen that there was a resounding expression of the will of the people in support of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. And many want to be part of that transformation, which we have promised Kenyans in our manifesto. And I think we need to actually focus on what we are promising Kenyans, because we intend to implement and fulfill every promise within our manifesto.
David, why are you skeptical?
Well, I'm just not really... when he mentioned there are so many benefits that come with government, I got a bit alarmed, because I thought that government is going to be for everybody, whether you are in government or not. There should be no one in government and another one outside. So a bit, of eyebrows there. But my question is, why would you be so earnestly looking for more alliances when you have a majority already? Why do I say that? We have come from this coalition business. I mean, the more you have many guys within one basket, wrangles will erupt, differences, trying to share the cake, positions, and then we'll degenerate back to the same old governance issues of manipulation, intimidation, blackmail. If you don't give us this, we won't support you. And then we end up with a breaking coalition again in due course. Why do you need so many? Why do you need everybody? Don't you value a good opposition?
We intend, and I think it is clear that there will be a strong opposition within Parliament and government as a whole. But what we're saying is that there is indeed a lot of merit. There is great merit when leaders can come together and say, look, we finished the election, now it's about development, how can we work together for the benefit of Kenyans? Politics is not just about a contest all the time. It is not just, it's not about enmity. It's a forum where leaders can come together and say, look, how can we work together to deliver to the people of this country? And the more that can happen, I think the more it can be encouraged without frowning upon it. Whereas we know, yes, there will be an opposition in Parliament, but let us see how we can sit down together, even with that opposition, to agree on, look, these are the priorities we had within our manifesto. Do you agree with this? How can we work together to implement them? Time for politics is over. I think now Kenyans are tired of politics. Kenyans want services.
Don't mistake me. It's not about politics of adversarial nature. It is that in a competitive democracy, we need to have a ruling government, ruling party or majority party, and an opposition, and it's important for checks and balances. Otherwise, we'll end up with bills being driven down the way the last parliament did by, collective, mentality. We are the majority, we can pass this. We need checks and balances.
I think one thing, David, if you look at the caliber of most of those who've been elected to parliament, if you look at the quality of our senators, I don't think we have a parliament that will be headed like ships, like sheep. Again, we have people who are able to sit down and reason and say, is this bill worth passing? Is it not worth passing? Just look at our Senate.
Some of them will come back with the same ones who mutilated the
Constitution.
Voted down the leadership integrity bill, voted to award themselves salary perks. I guess the question becomes, if you're transforming Kenya, how will you do that differently? Because every time we have a new government, every time we have a new parliament, those promises are made and eventually broken. So what will you do differently beyond the promises? How will you deliver?
The first thing I must say is that within the first 100 days, we are going to streamline how government operates. Streamlining it by ensuring, one, within the constitutional guidelines, we have a cabinet of 22, that and ministries which are designed to be efficient and effective, so you don't have a lot of duplication.
So let's take that point then, because the tendency in the past has been to reward loyalty, to reward cronies. Presumably the president-elect and his deputy are under pressure, from various people who feel, that they supported, they paid money, and that these two, at the helm of Kenya, are beholden to them. How will you get away from that, from people saying that?
The best thing about our president-elect and his deputy is that they have shown in the past that they can withstand pressure from their colleagues. When Uhuru Kenyatta refused to give a salary hike and he was told that the finance bill will not pass, he did not succumb to pressure. In as much as they may have that group of people pressuring them to get appointments or to reward them, there's also a larger group of people like you and I pressuring them to have a professional government. And I think they are not going to just to reward people and create a cabinet because of political expediency, but they're going to fulfill their promises.
If that is the truth, then give us the list of your party nominees. Your political party, the people they want to nominate in Parliament and Senate. If they are not cronies.
No, they're not cronies.
Who are they?
In Parliament, I must mention, number one, we have Mheshimiwa Amina Abdallah, whose performance in Parliament I think everybody can attest to. Number two, we have myself, Sakaja Johnson, chairman of the party. I am nominated in Parliament. On top of representing the interests of the party, I represent the youth. Number three, we have a lady called Janet Teyan. Janet is she's physically disabled. She's a blind lady from an ethnic minority, in line with the guidelines in the Constitution. Number four, we have a young man called Marshall Waikenda, who has been our Director of Communications, but who has also led the way with bringing musicians and artists together. And he has a lot of vision in terms of streamlining the arts into the economy, and I think that is what he's going to be focusing in Parliament. And those are probably the ones who will get in. In the Senate, we have Honorable Beth Mugo, who is the first name. I think we all know her. She has a wealth of experience. She's been in government for a long time.
She's our relative?
She is, incidentally. I think there's no need to demonize that. No, but she is.
Yeah.
Number two, we have a lady called Emma Mbura. Emma Mbura is little known, but she's been very active on the ground. She's a Mijikenda lady. We have a young lady called Lydia Madhia. What we did with our list of the Senate list of women is we put affirmative action within affirmative action, because many young people never get an opportunity, even when you give it to women. So we said that you will alternate a woman above 35 and a woman below 35. And that is what we have. We have Lydia Madhia, who was working with the youth agenda. She's been active. She's 25 years old. She's going to go into Parliament. And you see the mix between, when you look at somebody like Honorable Beth Mugo and somebody like Lydia Madhia, is that they can mentor each other and they can be able to grow the next crop of leadership. So that is more or less our list. You don't have a lot of the names we are used to. especially when you compare it to other lists.
We're used to, but Beth Muga is a name we're used to.
She is.
She's been around for a while.
I think she's an exception to it, but we have seen the value that she has added, especially to young women and mentoring young women in leadership.
Well,
and I think that's something we'd like to continue, even within the Senate.
On that score, I mean, I'm just a bit disappointed that she got in, obviously for two reasons. One, she had announced that she was retiring from politics, that she wouldn't run for anything. So for her to make another, a comeback on the nomination list is a bit of, it's not too happy situation, and the connection is obvious. But I mean, she's done a good job as an MP, but just those,
she has done a good job, but and you also must realize that in as much as she had made a personal decision to leave politics, we prevailed upon her because we knew the benefit she would add in our,
surely, of course, we would have gotten many other women you could bring on board, Johnson.
There are very few who matter in terms of experience and performance. Name me a few within TNA.
Oh, this country has many women you can tap, man.
Within TNA, you have to nominate members of your party.
And you couldn't get anybody
with the same
more deserving than her?
Experience.
Okay.
And you see, it's a mix.
All right.
She's the only one, and many others.
We'll give you the credit on that one. The dynamics there that are understandable.
It really has not been about cronyism. I think as this cabinet is put together, and I have a lot of confidence in the president-elect, is that the major consideration will be performance and merit.
Okay? Let's look at potentially the government that you would set up, the Jubilee. Would set up, or Kenyatta would set up. Would it be of the same composition, distribution in terms of age, experience, or are we going to see? I'm raising this with the knowledge that I've seen him parading the losers in the presidential, in the last election, Makwere, Balala, Charity, and so forth, and it's already come out that these are being slotted for government, for cabinet slots. Are we going to see comeback of the old guard losers in the cabinet?
I hope
it goes there?
I hope
you hope not. So a viewer actually says we do not expect to see rejected and recycled leaders like Balala, Ngilu, Zipapa, Ongeri has been the norm.
I think the president-elect and the deputy, first of all, appreciate the flavor and the energy that was injected in this campaign by young people. And you will see a lot of young people in this government. And that is something that we really hope will happen. And secondly, when you look at somebody like Najib Balala and Charity Ngilu, they are coalition partners. They are not just, you not regard them in the same manner as anybody else who was not able to make it. But they are coalition partners and they are part of the decision-making process. However...
So in this government, what do we expect them to get?
That is within the purview of the president-elect, his own appoints. So I cannot, guess or preempt, but I'm sure they are going to be part of the Jubilee government because they are partners within Jubilee. However, we want to get off the culture, and especially for all the rest who might be there, of rewarding somebody who the people might have rejected. Though you need to look at it also differently. Sometimes you have somebody who can add real value in terms of policy as a minister, but may not have been able to play the local politics. If you look at the likes of, and I'll mention somebody who is not in our coalition, somebody like Mukisa Kitui. Everybody appreciates the value that Mukisa Kitui offered in the Ministry of Trade. He's probably one of the best trade ministers ever. But when it comes to the local politics of, nipe nikupe, nini, mudslinging, whatnot, he may not be able to perform as well. That does not mean we need to deny Kenyans the opportunity to have somebody like that serve. I'm not saying he's going to be in this government, but I'm just giving an example. So sometimes there's a disconnect between somebody who can perform in terms of policy and in terms of being a minister, and somebody who can go and get votes within a constituency. And luckily, the positions of cabinet are not elective, they're appointive. And those are positions that can be appointed by the president when he sees, and again, I must say, out of performance. But when he sees this person can be able to add value in this government in this and this manner, despite him either being rejected or not having been rejected by the people.
But they'll have to go to parliament for approval.
Yes, they will have to go to parliament for approval.
Okay.
If I may just take you back a little, Johnson, it's a matter, we are past elections, but just roughly how much did this election cost you? It was full of color, pomp, showbiz, and I must commend you. I mean, in terms of that campaign, you beat CORD 10-0. I remember your air show in Eldoret, 6 planes landing, and it was all, colorful, and the whole campaign. You caused quite a phenomenon. Just how much did this campaign cost, man?
I don't know how to put it in a way that I will not look like I'm lying, because I don't intend to lie.
Don't lie, please.
But I am not able to give you a figure, because there were several different departments within the campaign. I personally was leading the political party, and I was looking at all my other candidates, including the president. We had a presidential campaign team. In as much as it had interlinkages, it is not possible for me to estimate. I might estimate a figure and just, give the wrong figure. But one thing I must say is that it'll surprise you, because I think now we have laws through which some of these declarations need to be made. It must surprise you that we not spend anything much more than CORD did.
Yes. I mean,
it is just being organized, staying focused, and
with
strategy.
Figures, because you're saying no more than CORD. So how much did CORD spend? How much did you spend?
I honestly cannot give you a figure. I have no idea.
Okay, like say 5 billion, roughly.
It must be less than that.
Okay.
It must be
so
less
then
than that.
You picked up on the legislation around election. So you, as a party, would be supporting this law around campaign financing.
Oh yes.
So you will also then, in due process, give us an audit of the expenditure on this election campaign.
I think once those laws are operationalized, we will do that within the form and manner.
Why wait for the laws, though?
Because you have to do it within the form and the manner which the law prescribes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take you back to the elections as well, just because of the IEBC and, of course, the ODM petition. Throws up questions about the failure of the BVR kits, all these failures. Would you support an audit, as some people have called for, of the failures of the IEBC, the challenges they encountered, the delays?
The first thing I must say is that for a long time, Kenyans have had a lot of confidence with the IEBC. They've been able to show and perform beyond expectations and to do well, in as much as they might have been dealing with different nature of elections, whether it is the by-elections or the referendum. But the one thing I must say is that in as much as we appreciate the will they had and the intention that they had to deliver a free and fair election, which I believe they did, there are some challenges they encountered, and I think they need to explain certain things. Kenyans spent 12 billion shillings, 12 billion on the BVR. I voted here at St. George's Primary School. It was not there. That is a disappointment, and we need to look at that. However, I do not think that in any way could have compromised the quality or the outcome of the election. But just because of public accountability, we need answers. And an audit needs to be done in that process of BVR. The EVID kits were not available, and many such things. But in terms of whether that compromised the outcome or the quality, I do not think so. Because the process was very clear. We were all at the National Tallying Center. David, you were there. Yes. In fact, you're not, and when I talk about the National Tallying Center, I'm not talking about where they're broadcasting the results from. Those are different room where returns are coming in. Form 36, in there. Form 34, form whatever. They're coming in there. Political parties had an opportunity to look at those results. I bumped into David in there. All parties were there. Now what happened is this, because the law does not necessarily provide that political parties go through each and every polling station form. When we insisted as political parties that we want to do it, and we did a joint press conference with CORD and other political parties, including Amani, then the IBC gave us an opportunity to come and sit with them, as in that process, in their kitchen. So we went through that process. But what happened is that returns for one constituency would take 3 or 4 hours to verify. So the process was becoming too long and tedious. So what they advised us, and of course it was understandable, was that all political parties leave that room, go to a separate room, so that the staff of the IBC can do their work. But before they announce any results, they would bring them to us in terms of a total, because we all had agents in the polling stations, in the constituencies, and the counties. They'd bring us the results, we'd look at them and say, actually this corresponds to what we have, or this may not, what is the issue? And that was a process that was very open. We did not see that before. We've never seen that before.
Is it true that, as CORD has alleged, that the agents which IBC had agreed sit with them in the tallying center you're talking about, the inner room, were expelled on that night after they had gone through 16 constituencies, and that actually five constituencies had already shown anomalies among the 16 already. So by the time they were being told to leave, it left a lot of questions.
That is what I've just explained. During that process, the entire day, all political parties were there, and we went through those 16. Many raised issues questions about, and it was about, 200 votes here, 500. Is this the right way? Is this the signature of my agent? Those are the anomalies we're talking about.
Right.
Not something astronomical or something that would imply rigging. All political parties were there. All political party agents were then asked, please move from this room because you're slowing down the process. Kenyans have been waiting for 5 days. I stayed in Bomas from Monday till the announcement, sleeping at all of, I think, 5 hours that week. We were moved then to a different room, all parties, not one party, not CORD alone, all political party agents, and told now from that room, once our internal staff, and they had, I think, 8 audit teams, once they have gone through all of these results, we will bring them to you as an, as a total, and tell you, in this constituency, these are the results. Do you agree or not? And if not, we can embargo that one and not announce it. That is the process that the IBC took us through.
We're running out of time, so you have to start winding up. But there are questions such as this from Petrobras on Facebook. In Kenya today, the greatest gospel that is preached is peace, 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 and nothing but peace. No one talks about justice, the tree that bears the fruits of peace. And so for those who did not vote for your presidential candidate, or for TNA and the Jubilee Alliance, they're feeling aggrieved, and they feel that all the activism we've seen around peace is sort of exhorting us to not question certain things, that we are settling for this uneasy calm at the expense of, asking difficult questions about, integrity, transparency, and accountability, because there are those who feel that the election was not free and fair. How do you address that?
I understand where they may be coming from. I think out of the experience in 2007, where we saw statements issued right and left by politicians that led to aggravating, the public and inciting the public, and we had violence. I think there's been a concerted effort by many players, whether it is NGOs, whether it is IBC, civil society, to actually call for peace. I think that is well within their mandate, and I must commend Kenyans because we've had a very peaceful election, probably the most peaceful election in the history of multi-party politics in this country. However, those who have questions, because now we have reformed institutions, we have a reformed judiciary, we have reformed our police force. Those who have questions also have channels through which to take their questions and their issues. And I think when we began, I said that it is well within the constitutional right of CORD and whoever else to challenge this election through the Supreme Court. I think doing it through political rallies, as we saw yesterday, or doing it through, press conferences and press statements is not the path to take this country.
So then
we actually resisted throughout the process, even when we were not sure at Bomas. We resisted the temptation of starting a back and forth with political parties.
Actually, the day after voting, you had your deputy president-elect come out and say they're very satisfied with the process and all of that. Yes.
That is different from a back and forth. That they have said this, then we say this, we respond to them. Because what you do, then you start as a vicious cycle that is not beneficial to our country.
But Sakaja, let me, are you saying, first of all, that you are on record saying that this election was free and fair, and there's nothing that even on your side you can question with it?
In my analysis, it has passed the threshold of fairness. The intention of the IBC to carry out a credible election was there. The election was credible, and I think there is nothing that they could have done that would have altered the outcome of this election.
Do you see a distinction between an outcome that broadly reflects the will of people and one that is free and fair? Is there a distinction to you?
I think, you see, the history of politics in Africa is that it is difficult for you to say an election is free and fair when you do not win. It is difficult. I think the will of the people was resounding because the difference between our candidate, who is now the president-elect, and his closest competitor was more than 800,000 votes. So just the expression of the will of the people was very clear. And that was the expression of 86% of those who, had registered as voters. But what I must say is that the will of the people must never be sacrificed at the altar of technicalities. It is not about technicality. It's not about whether you put this ballot in this box or whatnot, whether it is about 0.07 or whatnot. Of course, there's a threshold. But once the people have expressed their will in a way that is resounding, that must be respected. It cannot be overturned by any other institution, and it should not be overturned.
So what do you make then of the IBC, which is being challenged in court, running ads urging people to accept the outcome of the election? That runs counter to...
I think they could have their reasons for it, but accepting results of an election and challenge them in court, I think are very different things. You can accept, yes, this is what they've announced and it is whatnot, but I don't agree. I don't agree with this result because of one or three reasons. I think everybody has a right to go through the right process and challenge whichever result. This is just a presidential petition. There are petitions in constituencies, in the counties, in the wards, and all of those should go through the legal process. And we have confidence that the judiciary will actually expedite on this process and respect the will of Kenyans.
What assurance do you have from the two principals and whoever else they want to incorporate in the coalitions that there will be no squabbling soon after when we start forming the government and appointing people, parastatal chiefs and ambassadors, that there will be no quarrels, no political wrangling that is coming? What guarantee do we have?
You know the difference between the coalition arrangements we have now and those that have been there before is that these agreements are public, first of all. They're not secret MOUs that we learn about when people have disagreed. They are deposited at the registrar of political parties according to Article 35 of the Constitution, freedom of information. Anybody can go there and access it. So it is clear that there is 50-50 sharing of these positions. It is also clear.
What if we want our money? Where does 50-50 come in?
We'll have to agree and still deposit another agreement, or whichever party, not just a money.
The reason why I'm asking this is
we'll have to deposit it.
Honorable Uru went to Musalia Mudavadi and signed an agreement. 2 days later, they never came.
That is a difference. So that's the difference I'm talking about, because whatever they did, and we are part of those who actually questioned that process, was not a public process. Whatever they did was a personal agreement between the two. It was an intention to work together, but it had to be, institutionalized. It had to be formalized by an agreement between the political parties. And you see, once that was done, and we said as political parties, we cannot just say that, give this person this share, give this person this share. Let's go back to our members. And once we went back to our members, they said they want a nomination. So that is what happened. You see, the beauty is that leadership has now gone to the people. It is not about boardroom, boardroom politics that, no.
But when appointments come in, it will be boardroom.
Of course, because now you've elected a president and a deputy. Yeah. And I think you've seen Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. You can even see the chemistry between them. You can see the history of how they've worked together. Those guys respect each other. Those guys have a good working relationship.
But I'm talking about other people you incorporate. Say, for instance, Karaitu Murungi. Here's Karaitu Murungi with the number of senators. Then we have the Amani people. They come and say, okay, we will support you, but what is it for us?
So
that's why the quarrels come. And what my question is, what guarantee do you have that we're not going to have that?
The guarantee is this. It's about being very clear from the beginning. When you start an engagement, you say that you will get 1 or 2. If you agree, let's sign. If you don't agree, then you don't sign. So you don't have squabble saying, just come, let's be friends, let's be a coalition together. But it's not clear what is in it for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we are out of time, but a final question on national TV from your party agents. When are you going to pay them? We've been texting.
I think paid. As far as I know, we have paid all our agents. As far as I'm concerned, but I will check with my executive director and secretariat to see if there has been any problem. Okay. But as far as I know, that was something I approved, signed off, and they have been sorted out.
Okay, thank you very much. That's where Cheche ends this week. Our thanks to Johnson Sakaja, chairman of the National Alliance Party, or TNA, of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. Our thanks also to panelists Mutegin Jao and David Makali. I'm Udwa Kamimo. Enjoy the rest of your week.